Welcome back. So this time we're going to actually use scapy and the whitelist we created earlier to really filter out the connections which are whitelisted and the ones which are not. So here, let's create first a test that's just saying that we are going to agree on a format for our configuration files. Let's call it test read config.py. Read simple config, simple config equals, and then maybe we can put what we've fiddled with earlier. So this is the yes. So this is going to be the file format we're going to use. Now probably from our tool. So let's call our tool from TCP, how did I call this? tcpd filter. tcpd filter import read whitelist, or read config maybe. Config read whitelist, because the config could be something else, like maybe configuring what kind of errors you want to see, or here it's more like it's more specific, like read the whitelist. Okay, and now first, okay, so config equals read whitelist, so whitelist equals read whitelist, and now we are going to pass. So here we either have the ability to pass the content of the file or the file name. Let's say we are just going to pass the stream. It's easier for low YAML. Simple config, and now we should assert that whitelist, first element of whitelist, and then src should equal to 8888. And then the last item, port of last item should be 53. Okay, I think we're pretty good here. We just need to install pytest. We need a test runner to run our tests. It's going to take a moment. Great. So now I can do pytest. Pytest. Oh, from tcpd filter import read whitelist. No module name tcpd filter. Oh yes, of course. tcpd filter.py. Okay. Read whitelist, and then here it's a stream return YAML.load of this the stream in question. Great. Oh, so here it picked up that it was a number. So here in my whitelist here, so this got interpreted as a string, but this got interpreted as a number. Could that represent an issue in the future? Actually, it kind of depends on what is the easiest. A port is always an integer, so I could live with that. Okay, great. So reading the config is good. we have a working test. Now we need to have also a broken test. So what if I'm like not very good and I'm kind of, yeah, maybe I forgot the name field, or maybe it's just like this is a placeholder. So this is definitely not gonna work. So I don't want it to work. I want it's like if the file is not a valid config file, it should return an except. It should raise an exception. So with pytest.raises, and what kind of exception should it be? Probably incorrect file name, incorrect file, or exception. So it should be like, I'm going to create a new exception like invalid or unreadable whitelist exception. No customization required, and should return this exception when I'm doing this, and I call it broken config, and here it's broken config. So now we have a test that checks when it works, when it doesn't. This one should absolutely not pass. It doesn't pass, but not for the good reasons, because I forgot to import pytest. Import pytest. Unreadable whitelist. Yeah, I got this name, but it's not imported. Okay, did not raise this error. What's wrong with this? Oh, it's because I think it's just raising the standard error from YAML.load. So would that be so terrible? What kind of error does it raise when it's not using my exception? What? It can read this config? Okay, so it's absolutely not reading, it's absolutely not making a fuss. YAML is able to read just a file which is formatted like this, which is not good for me. So I guess I'll have to check. So this is like whitelist. This is like what we loaded from the file, and then if not is instance of whitelist, it should be a list. So if it's not a list, raise unreadable whitelist. Whitelist does not contain rules. It would be good also to have like the required elements we need to provide for the whitelist. So one way of doing it would be just checking. If we are lazy, we could do it like this. If not name in whitelist 0. So if the first element doesn't have a name, then it's going to be whitelist rules. I always get it. Are not in the proper format. Yes, so this is very lazy, just checking that the name isn't, well, the name attribute, the name key is present in the rule we parsed. So here it just means that, okay, we have a list, but at least it should have a name, the rule should have a name. It's a bit different, and it's not really validating that we're getting anything out of it. So yeah, it's not very nice. Here we are going to take care of this later. Let's just say, okay, return whitelist. Let's just focus on having a list for the moment. We'll do format checks after. Okay, so now it passes because it has this config file, this broken config file. It's not like, it's mostly like read text config, and it's not really testing it can read the text config. It's more like it raise when text only config. Okay, so this is a more accurate test name with a very specific exception that gets yielded when we read the whitelist. Okay, so now what if we have an improper format in the whitelist? It raises when bad format. And now we can have like name something, and then I'm going to misspell the attribute value. So instead of src, I'm going to call it source, and I'm going to say 1111. Okay, so this is like, it has a name which is good, but this field is improperly written. But I have a lot of cases where I don't want it to work. I don't want the parsing to succeed. I have a few options. Either I put all my broken configurations in a list and I go through it inside from within the test, or maybe you remember I said that there were different ways of running the test using mark and parameterize. So I'm going to use this today. Whitetest mark parameterize, and then it's only the content that's going to change. And now I'm going to use different configurations with different broken configurations. None of them should pass. So this one is not working because the field is broken. This one should not work because, like, let's say we have a source, we have an src tag, but we don't have a name. Another one, we should have like name, src, but no est. Is that the, yeah, that's the name we figured out? src 1111, and no destination. But we have, let's say we put the port 53. Okay. Well, wait, that might be a good way of expressing an actual rule, like from we want to validate everything which is from src on port 53, and we don't care about the destination. And that might be a valid output. So let's just forget that one for the moment. Okay. So we end up with two different potentially broken formats. Okay, so I'll just, okay, and then since I use the content placeholder here, it's the content that gets in here, and the content that gets in here. So here, parameterize is going to generate two different tests, one which has like name something, and then source which is misspelled, and this one doesn't have name in it. And both should raise an unreadable whitelist error exception. Okay, so now let's try this one. Okay, so it did not raise for any of them. So it tried with when bad format with name something and then source whatever, and it failed when, so yeah, because we only check if it's a list or not for the moment. So that's good. So now we can implement it like if name not in whitelist of 0 or rc not in. You see it's getting a bit cumbersome because I have to do it for, I guess I have to do it for every single item, not just the first one, because if the first one is correct and there is an error down the line, it's going to be problematic. So let's make like a test, like a validation function. Validate rule, the rule dictionary, for attribute in name src if not attribute in rule phrase rule is missing the attribute, and then for rule in whitelist validate rule of this rule. Yeah, so now at least for each rule I'm going to check that both attributes name and src are within the rule, otherwise it's going to send me an exception. Now I think all my tests should pass. Yes, I do pytest-v. Okay, so it failed with the src 111, so maybe I should make it a bit more readable, but yeah, no, that's, yeah, we can't really do anything with it. So that's quite good. We now have a way of reading through like broken configs and badly formatted configs. That's good. Now I'm thinking, yeah, using this dictionary approach, look at what it's going to do. Like if I'm importing it, like in Python from tcp defilter import read whitelist equals read tpd open whitelist Okay, so at least here I got my read whitelists, which returns a list of dictionaries, but it's still a list of dictionaries, so I have to go like whitelist name. I'd like to be able to do wl.name. This would mean that, yeah, dictionary object has no attribute name. So how we can do this is either using name tuples, so we would parse these dictionaries into name tuples, or we can use the attr library, which creates data objects. So install attrs. Okay, so I'm confessing that I never know the actual syntax of attrs, so I have to look it up every time. Python attrs. Yes, Python classes without boilerplate. Actually, the documentation was here. Okay, so pip install attrs. This is done already. Like by example, yes, exactly what I need. So indeed, it's just a class with the attr.s at the top, and then the attr ib for attributes. So let's call it import. I get there. Attrs, attr. White list rule. It's yes, and then I have like name is an attrib, so does src, so does tst, so does port. Okay, and maybe here instead of validating my rule I should like just not validate it but more like parse it using attrs. So let's keep it this for the moment. Parse rule of rule, but I feel that my names are going to get inconsistent at some point. I'm going to turn actually a list of rules into like a list of instructions, so it's more like an instruction or definition. It's better. Definition, and here so it's more like parse rule, and then I provide the definition. And if I remember correctly, I should be able to get so it's going to be a return whitelist rule, and then I'm passing the definition dictionary, and it should create the object like this, like peacefully and without screaming. Let's see what it does. So I need to put this in the list because I'm going through a list myself, but I want to create another list, not with like these just dictionaries, but with my attrs, like my whitelist rules objects. Rules equals an empty list, and then for definition in whitelist rules that happened, and then of parse rule of definition. And now my test should no longer pass because I've done a refactoring, but first, so the init is missing 3 required positional arguments, name, DST, and port. Unexpected keyword argument source. Okay, so let's focus on the first test, -x. Okay, first test says, okay, you try to read this configuration, but it fails because the port argument is missing. Okay, so I know that you can have like default equals star. And I think this should solve the problem. Like my object should have a, oh, so yeah, you see it passed. Like my read symbol config passed. Now it was failing before, and now it passed. Why did it pass? Because I said that port should be a star by default. Okay, I can get there. And now what it says, got an expected keyword argument source. Okay, so now like when I get a type error in my parsing definition, I should return my unreadable whitelist. So try this, and then accept you're getting a type error as exception, raise, and then add formatting or no, misformatted rule, and then we can paste back the content of definition. So now we are going to we can return back the rule which was badly formatted, and maybe also include the exception text also. So format definition and then the text of the exception. I'm pretty sure. Oh, ex. Okay, so now I got back my errors. Yeah, I wish I was able to read the exception text. So so you'll notice that I have this gutter here, and that's bothering me. I'm completely triggered by the fact that my line is going over the gutter. This is the 80 character line, the 80 character limit, and so my code is not my code is kind of breaking the rules of PEP 8, so the formatting standards for Python code. So I'm going to just use two. Okay, I'm going to split it in two over 2 lines. So my message is misformatted rule, and then this is the error message. What's important code-wise is that my my exceptions are returned. But why am I spending some time formatting the error messages? Because it has to be helpful for the user. So I'm going to try it out. Python, yes, from tcp import read whitelist. And now if I read whitelist, and yes, I'm going to put it in a different variable. So if it has the name hello src 1.01011 read whitelist of rule. Oh, there's no DST. Okay, so we didn't plan for the DST thing already, but great. So now we got something which looks like a dictionary, which has like name, src, and dst. Good. And now if we put like rules equals like this, rules, first element of rules, and if I now do name, oh, it does not, like parse rule. Ah, return whitelist. Okay, so since the beginning it was lying to me. So let's do it again. From tcp read whitelist, and then rule is like this, and then rules equals rules. Ah, yeah. So it looks more like an attribute, an attrs class. So it's a whitelist rule which has name equals hello src dst, and port. You see that I did not mention the port here, but it got assigned a star by default. Now if I do rules of 0.name, okay, it works. Perfect. So now what if we have a crooked rule? Well, we had a preview of this earlier. So what happened is the error message is misformatted rule, and then I got the initial instruction for my rule, and then it says init got an expected keyword argument source. So I think it's enough for me to have the feeling that something is going wrong with the source element, and so I would be able to check the documentation, figure out that the source is not supposed to be written like this, and then fix it in my code. So I think it's good enough for the moment. Okay, and now if I just try one last way of writing instructions. Okay, so this is like a valid list, but yeah, okay, so missing 2 positional arguments, src and dst. Okay, and if it's not even a list, whitelist doesn't contain rules. Maybe the error message is a bit short, like it does contain rules. It does not contain parsable rules, valid rules. Yeah, it sounds like. Great. Now I think next time we'll be able to dig deeper into reading this pcap file and comparing with the rules we're getting from the whitelist. See you next time!